This is the EvoToca podcast, and this podcast basically covers us coaches discussing what we can do to improve the level of youth soccer with improving the level of play of our players as well as the level of coaching. And today I have a guest. You coaches Solar, am I right?
Yeah.
Santiago. So if Santiago, if you could just let us know what teams you coach, what age groups.
Yeah, well, first, Kevin, I want to thank you for inviting me. I've been wanting to speak with you more, and I think it's a great platform to do it. So thank you. And yeah, I'm at Solar Soccer Club, the academy program. I coach the U16 and U14 boys teams that play in ECNL.
Okay. And just to start off the first question, what sparked your interest in the game of soccer?
Wow. Yeah, so back to probably around 1997 in Venezuela. I was 4 years old. And just everything around Copa America in 1997. In Venezuela at that time, the national team wasn't a big player, right? They had never actually gotten a point in World Cup qualifying ever.
Wow.
So the country rooted for Brazil. And Brazil had a pretty good team. So fell in love with that style of play. And then Brazil, had a deep run in the 98 World Cup. So that was kind of when they lost in the final.
To France.
I cried it out.
To France?
Yeah, France. I cried it out, and I just been in love with the game ever since. Yeah.
Man, I was happy at that time because I'm a Zidane fan. But could you just tell us like some of the players on Brazil at that time?
Yeah, so it would have been, Ronaldo, Rivaldo.
Yeah.
That was the main, but you have Duda, you have
Roberto Carlos was there.
Carlos was in the 98. Yeah, Cafu.
Cafu was another one.
So those guys are the ones that, became I wouldn't say that those were like my biggest idols because that was really just at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Really, the next maybe couple World Cups after that, like 02-06, were like big
like which
influences in my life. Probably Zidane. Became a big Zidane fan. Zidane, Ronaldinho. I think those are the biggest ones.
Yeah, same for me. And I remember on that 06 World Cup, when Zidane got the red, I stopped watching the game. I left. Didn't even watch it. I didn't believe they would win. So that was heartbreaking. But for me, Zidane and Ronaldinho, and I guess that's where my next question leads to is what made you fall in love with the game? Like, what was it about those players or those teams that you love so much?
I wouldn't say so much. It was like, I think that was kind of the introduction, right? And you love kind of, I think what makes it easy with the game when you're in a country where everyone's watching it and there's a big passion around it. If everyone's watching something, you want to be a part of that, right? It's a natural
like the Super Bowl.
Yeah, so like the country shuts down, the whole country's watching the World Cup. At that point, soccer wasn't even that big in Venezuela. Baseball was still a bigger sport.
Okay.
Even to this day, it's still maybe 50-50. But back then, it was maybe 80% baseball, 20% soccer. But even then, country shut down. That was kind of the beginning of it, right? In 2002 World Cup qualifying, Venezuela got its first point, first time ever a draw, right? So the country was kind of warming up to soccer, to the sport. But the main thing was I went to a Catholic school where it was run by Spanish priests.
Okay.
Right. And these guys brought the game with them from Spain. So we would play, before school, we would play on pavement, like little 5v5 fields type of thing, before school started. So I would ask my mom, hey, take me there an hour before so I can play. Right. So we would be playing pickup like 6-7 years old, just playing. Then recess, we had 3 different breaks during school. So like 15-minute break, 30-minute break, and then an hour break for lunch. Right. All during those periods, like I wouldn't even go eat.
Yeah.
Right? And then I would be eating like right before class.
Yeah.
We would go straight to the court because we wanted to get there first because there were another 120, students per grade that were out there playing in 3 different courts. So you wanted to get there, and then it became competitive, right? Like you're competing to be on the court.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean by that?
So there's 3 courts. There's 120 boys. Yeah. They all want to play.
Okay.
So
so best team stays on.
Yeah. So best.
Okay.
All sorts of things. Like it wasn't policed.
Yeah.
You know, it was just the teachers watching from afar.
Mm.
So you have all these kids just kind of figuring it out.
Yeah.
You know, just go, like, they didn't tell us to go play. Like,
Yeah.
right? Other people might have been playing, you know, with a bouncy ball off the wall. Somebody might have just been passing a ball off the wall by themselves. Somebody could have just been sat eating their lunch under a tree.
Yeah.
Anything you want to do. But the majority of the kids are wanting to play soccer.
Okay.
Right? So you have about 120 kids, right? Because we had 3 different classrooms, 40 kids per classroom.
Mm-hmm.
And so not only would we have those 3 periods and the time before school where we would play, but we would also play an intramural league. Right?
Okay. After school?
During PE.
Okay.
Right? That was twice a week.
Okay.
And then there would be the competitive teams for the school. So those teams would train after school.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that wasn't the whole, you know, 120 players that participated, but in the intramural league, you had to play.
What grade level was this?
This was
or what age?
Kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, and 3rd grade. That's what I was in. That's the years I spent in that school.
3rd grade is like what, 8, 7, 8?
8. 3rd grade, 9 and 10. Or no, actually 8 and 9.
Okay.
Yeah, 8 and 9. Yeah.
Okay.
So all those years, just playing.
Okay.
Then I moved to the US. It's a lot different, but I'd already had that, like, it was already in me, you know?
And you know what I'm wondering about that too? I'm assuming at this time there were like no organized clubs. Like you guys didn't have clubs, or did you?
Yeah. So the clubs were the schools.
Okay.
Then there were also professional clubs. It wasn't as developed in Venezuela at that time, but there was Caracas, right? And then there was later another club within Caracas, Real Sport, right? Few clubs started popping up, right, where they had professional academies. But the first division, like my school, right, is La Salle. So that school had a big rivalry with another school, Loyola, right? La Salle and Loyola were actually in the first division of Venezuelan soccer in the 50s.
Okay.
Right. By that time, their first teams weren't anymore in that first division, but there was this tradition of soccer that had been kind of passed down through the schools, right? It's a little bit longer explanation as to how all that broke down, but just to give you an idea, that there's already established professional league, right?
Okay.
And with promotion and relegation. So even though it wasn't that developed, that was already established, you know?
Okay, and
because it's South America.
And when you say this, like, what is the age range when you're speaking of these teams? Like, what age range is this taking place when you say like professional?
Yeah, like 17 plus.
Okay.
Yeah. 17 plus, and then obviously those clubs would then have a U16 team, U15, all the way down to little kids where, you know, like what I was describing to you before. Okay. So my school with 120 players, we may have had like 4 teams per age, right? So 15 players per team, about 60 of the 120 kids played competitively.
Okay. And you know, one thing when you're describing this, the reason I'd ask you about the club is because I'm trying to figure out at that from like 4 or 3 or whatever to like 8 or 9, how much are they playing unstructured soccer each day? Because here, the vast majority of people are not doing that. So, like, if you had to estimate in hours, how much of it was unstructured?
I would say on a daily basis. So you're talking about an hour before school, say another hour and a half during school, so 2.5 hours. And then, so I would say on average about 2.5 hours is what
a day
is of unstructured.
Monday through Friday,
yeah. And there might be some additional to that. Like obviously there's variance with each player. Like some kids, I wouldn't do this every day because I lived nearby the school, so I would go home to eat lunch before, because we would go to school from 7 to 1:30, right?
Okay.
And then I would get out of school go have lunch, and then go to practice. But a lot of kids live too far away to go home to have lunch. So, because lunch over there, it's like at 2 p.m.
Okay.
Around 2 p.m. It's not here like where you just eat quickly.
Yeah.
Right. It's more like sit down. That's your biggest meal of the day.
Okay.
Right. So you go, you sit down, you eat. Right. But some kids would stay at school because their house was too far away. They lived too far away. So they would stay there, eat a quick lunch, and then keep playing on the courts.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Sometimes I wanted to stay, but my mom was like, "No, we have to go home and eat lunch."
Yeah.
So then there's some kids that are playing more than 2.5 hours.
Wow. And one of the things that it's a big debate within American soccer, but in terms of at the time, you said soccer was not the biggest sport, like not even close. Or
no, in Venezuela, yeah. So Venezuela, the vast majority of the country, baseball was the main sport at that time. The thing is, like in Caracas, there were certain populations where soccer was the biggest sport. Like in my school, it was the biggest sport. Right? They didn't play a lot of baseball, but if you went to different parts of the city, right, there was baseball. So yeah,
and this is why this and first off, I want to say that when I was at the University of South Florida, when I played with people from the islands, the Caribbean, South Americans, Europeans, and Venezuelans. The Venezuelans I played with, these guys had creativity that Americans didn't have, and I say that because I don't think in America that soccer has to be the most popular sport in order to create top players, because Venezuela, those players at the time, I'm sure when they grew up, they also didn't play where soccer was the most popular, but the way they played with effectiveness, but flair, with creativity.
Yeah,
and that we didn't have American college players don't have that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of different things to that, right? I think that one, you need to have players that have it, right? Have players that have the flair, but you also need to then let them express it.
That's
because you have a lot of kids that have the creativity. Like, I mean, there are pockets of populations in this country where the country is so big. Like you said, we don't need to have the very, it doesn't need to be the biggest sport for us to produce the top players.
Pockets.
Right? I think it's pockets. Like you have Uruguay, it's 3.5 million people, and they produce top player after top player. So if you just take a state, right, like
100%,
within a state, you can produce players that are good enough, but it has to be the right type of environment. That's what you need, right? So, but you have some components already in certain places. You have some here in North Texas. There's a lot of players here.
Yeah,
it's a lot of players, right? Here you have, the issue of like that unstructured play happens in an area where it's basically from city center and south, right? South Dallas, where you have a lot of, the Mexican American population, other Latin American, you've got other immigration from Africa, from different parts of the world, right? And you have that influence, and in those pockets there's a lot of unstructured play, but there's not the means to play, right? Because it's a pay to play system, and I don't think the pay to play system is so much what slows us down here, but it's more the distances that people have to drive. Because if you have a working family, right, and you have two parents that work until 5-6 p.m., but you have to pick up the kid to take him to 5:30 soccer practice, it's tough.
100%.
So
100%.
There's different dynamics that we have to work out here in North Texas, but we have talent here.
Yeah,
there's definitely talent.
Yeah,
and you have pockets in California, you have pockets in New Jersey, you have pockets in St. Louis, Chicago, obviously in Florida. North Carolina, Maryland. There's a lot of Seattle, Portland. There's a lot of pockets where kids play.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I missed some. There's more, I'm sure.
Yeah,
I'm sure I did mention some, but we've got to be able to take that talent and then put them in an environment where they can express that, right? That's the other component.
And I think, I think that's huge, and that's why I speak so much on this structure part, because really, at least in my opinion, okay, the coach can help, but there's no place where players get to experiment where there's no coach. You experience, you get to experiment, do whatever you want. You don't have the coach saying, "Hey, why did you lose the ball? You should have passed it there." Now, I think a coach is good because if once you learn that, then the coach can tell you, "Hey, that in that situation that didn't make sense." But and I want to hear your opinion on this. But I think that's what I love so much is that when you have these environments where there's not coaches telling you do this and do that, then you can have, like we said, these Venezuelan players. Even though soccer is not the most popular sport, they have creative players that we don't have here in America.
Yeah. So, wow. There's a lot of layers to this, but I think what you said there, and it's something that Aymar, right, Pablo Aymar,
yeah, the Argentinian.
So he works with the youth national teams in Argentina,
okay,
and he's also the assistant for the team that won the World Cup, right? So for the senior, he's an assistant within.
The recent team, that won it in 2022.
So, okay. So the way that they set it up, that Scaloni set it up was, he's got the youth team coaches, right? Mascherano and Aymar, right? They have the U20, U17 teams. They are also the assistants for the senior team. So there's a lot of integration within that national teams program. But what he said was, when I was a kid, right, that when we went to the clubs, it was just the coaches were just polishing us, right? It wasn't teaching us anything.
Yes, I like that.
It's the same thing that Cruyff said. Like, I played 5 hours a day, and I played 2 hours twice a week at Ajax. Like, where do you think I learned to play? I learned to play in the street, right? I didn't learn to play at Ajax. They just polished me. Polish.
Oh man.
So, and that's, this is a big topic, but I think there's got to be something where we create environments where kids can play unstructured.
And man, this is so big because I look at myself as a coach, and even though I love creativity, there are times when kids are playing and I just need to be quiet. They always don't have to have the most effective move. It doesn't always have to make sense. Yeah. But even me, like relative to Americans, I think from the ones that I've seen and from growing up, there are very few that emphasize creativity as much as me, like as I'm coaching on the game. But even I don't do a good enough a job on it. That's just me looking at myself.
Well, I think you can create an environment where creativity can be fostered, but you can't teach creativity.
Correct.
Creativity is decision making. Decision making comes from trial and error.
Correct.
Right. So, and then your mind being open to that, so you can guide them to say, "Hey, what could you have done there?" Right, and then they take that, and then their trial and error, and the little thing that they saw on TV.
So, like, can you explain that process more simply? Like, okay, so like what you just said, can you explain it like as if, let's say you have a player, and then can you explain that process and then how you?
Yeah. So for me at work, it starts with first something that they saw on TV.
Okay.
Right. So, for example, it might be, Messi. Let's just give a good example that everybody's going to see. Messi's cutting inside. Right, gets it on the right, cutting inside. The move, the play that he's done for 20 years.
Yeah.
So he's cutting inside, and now he's dropping the shoulder to beat players. Right. There's a bit of creativity in there in terms of how he stops and starts. Right. So and how he changes speed.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So the change of speed and how often he changes speed based on what the defender is doing, right, is what his creative ability is. Right. So now a kid is watching that on TV. He's not going to be able to dissect that, right?
Correct.
He doesn't have that type of analytical mind. He's just seeing
it. Yeah.
Just seeing it.
Yeah.
Just seeing him doing, wow, it's amazing. Right. So that picture's in his brain already. Right. What he's not analyzing it, but it's already in there.
Correct.
Right. So that's the first thing I think has to happen.
Correct.
Right. Because you can start from scratch, but when you start from seeing that, it's a lot easier. Right? It's like in anything, science, history. You don't want to start from zero, right? You can start from what somebody else did.
Yes.
So, and then, okay, you go out and play, right? And you go out and play. naturally you're going to be doing some of the things, right? You're going to be dribbling, and then you're going to lose the ball, right? You're going to be trial and error, right? You're going to be dribbling, losing the ball. Next time, okay, you're trying to do something different. So next time you're, and we can even take it a step back. Let's say before you even learn how to dribble, you watch Messi, and then you're on with the outside in the backyard, or with the ball alone in whatever setting, just doing the things, mimicking, replicating, right? So and then you might even have a coach teaching you, or your dad teaching you, your brother teaching you, hey, point your toe down, hey, lean, drop your shoulder, right? Just technique that you're teaching.
Yeah.
Right. Once they have that, then they're playing in a game. And then they're facing defenders. When they're facing defenders, now they're making decisions. The defender stopped, I'm going to keep going. The defender kept going, I'm going to stop. Right? So now, then you might have a coach teaching that, hey, when the defender's ahead of you, stop. When the defender's even with you, right, then you can stop, let him run by, keep going, right? So you can teach the decision making, right? But then, once they become more and more proficient, I think that's where the creativity starts to happen, where now they have to,
And when you say more proficient, are you talking about in the execution of the move, or
right? The not the execution of the move, but just once they are comfortable with the ball at their feet,
okay,
right? Then now they're going to a club, right, where the coach is now saying, hey, you're good at doing this because you've done it over and over. Now let's, you keep going to the left, but what you're good at doing is cutting from right to left. So go to the right. Don't run to the left. Run to the right, because when you get it there, you're going to do what you can do. And then from there, now, hey, you've got multiple players here. You could go around them. You could go over them. You could go through their legs, right? And now you've got the player playing with different factors, using their ability, and then trial and error at that level, right? Because there's a trial and error like unstructured play. Then there's a trial and an error when it's already in a structure, right? Like, I know I'm cutting from right to left. I'm always going to go to the right. When you play in the unstructured, you don't have positions, right? So, but in this setting, now I'm perfecting this, right? Like, the coach noticed I'm good going from right to left. That's just something I brought to the table. Now he's telling me, stay on the right. Let's get you the ball to your feet. And now figure this out, right? Run inside with the ball. If the player comes, you can play give and go with someone. You can drop your shoulder, keep going to the left. You can fake like you're going left, cut back to the right. Now you've got all these different tools of how to break them down. And now it's the implementation is the creativity, right? Like when and where to do the different things.
And are you saying, from what you said, are you saying the coach's job is to like give them ideas or expand on what they only did before and like say, hey, you can do this, this, and this?
Well, I think before you can give players ideas, they have to have the technical.
But once that's established,
once the technical ability is established, I think the job of the coach is to identify what are the strengths of the player and help them do those things.
Okay. But what about when you said, okay, the player once he masters a skill, he's only focusing on that one player in front of him and nothing else. But then you said as a coach, you said, hey, take this into consideration, take that into consideration.
Right. And there's different ways, right? So like there we're getting into coaching methodology, but there's different ways to bring that out. It might be guided questions.
Question.
Right?
Okay. Question.
It might be guided questions like, hey, when you run inside with the ball there, this specific player is taking the ball from you. So if you're running left and he knows you're running left and he's taking the ball from you, what else could you do to try to get around him? Because the goal is to go to the goal over there. Yeah. But you keep trying to go to the left and he's taking the ball from you. So what else could happen? And maybe he has a solution, maybe he doesn't. And that's where, depending on the age, how patient you are and how much time you have to teach it, right? I might just leave him 3 or 4 practices like, hey, you keep going to the left and you're losing the ball. Like, what else could...
But you're allowing them... You see, one of the things that I like that you said that I need to implement more of is when a player does something and I think he could have done something else. I'm like, why didn't you do that? Instead of saying like, what else could have you could you have done? Because I know when I've seen you coach, you question a lot.
Yeah, I think at the young ages, that's the approach.
6 and 7, I'm talking about in this case, 6, 7 years old.
6 and 7 years old, and that's where we coincided there. I like to do that a lot where, hey, what else could have worked there? You know, or what could have worked if that didn't work? You know, why did that break down? What happened? Was it that you didn't execute it, or was it that maybe something else should have happened? So, and I think that gets them to the closest to creating their own idea, right? Because I think naturally we believe more in the things that we create.
When you say we, are you thinking about coaches or players?
Just human beings. Like,
oh, yeah, correct.
You know, like,
we're more bought into.
Yeah, we're more bought in. Like, if I think, oh, I created this, you know, I chose to do this, more bought into that.
Correct.
So, and I think that's where you can plant those seeds. It's kind of like Inception, like the movie Inception, where with Leonardo DiCaprio, where they want to make people, like, they go into people's dreams to plant seeds because they want to make them believe that they came up with the idea.
That it was their idea, yes.
You know?
Yes.
So it's how do I make him believe that it was his idea, even though I'm the one really kind of pushing. And then once in a while, you'll have players, right, that will come up with something that you didn't think about. You know,
that happens a lot for me, even with 6 and 7.
I think at those ages where it happens the most, because those are the kids that are the freshest. They haven't been.
Oh, yeah, you know, that makes sense.
They haven't been like.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
So their creativity is. They have no limit.
Yeah. And no, good point. And what would you say led you to be a coach, or what made you believe that was your next step to become a coach?
For me, I'd stopped playing college soccer after my second year of college. I'd been playing PDL, and there was a couple. I had always had that mind of analyzing the game, right? So that was always something I wanted to do from a young age, of like organizing teams. I would get out pieces of paper and like write down formations, write down.
Was this when you were a player too?
Yeah, when I was like 13, 14 years old. Okay. From that age is when it started.
Okay.
From watching games, and I would be, curious. They would put the lineup there, and I would see players. From one of the things that really caught my eye was I noticed Real Madrid, right, when it was the Galacticos, they would play 4-2-2-2, right? Okay. 4-2-2-2, and it was Zidane and Figo as the two attacking,
Ronaldo,
and then it was
Ronaldo,
Raul and Ronaldo at the front, right?
Yeah.
So it was those two attacking, those two at the front, and then it was Makelele.
Could be Cambiaso.
Cambiaso came a little
Guti,
later.
Maybe. I don't know if
Guti wasn't the team, but he wasn't really a starter until a little bit later. But then they brought in Beckham.
Yeah,
they
true.
Tried to play Beckham in the holding role.
Yeah,
didn't really work. But but what I noticed about the way they played was that they said it was 4-2-2-2, but that's never how it really looked. It never looked like 4-2-2-2. So that just caught my attention and made me think, well, if they say 4-2-2-2 and it's like that, then I could. So I could make it could be anything, right? So that's just something that was the first time that I looked at a formation and I thought, and I kind of understood what it was, because obviously when you're a little, like we started playing 11v11 in Venezuela from 5 years old. So, and that's the formation we would play, but we would always kind of more stay in spots.
So you said, right? How much did you play, or what formation since you were 5?
Yeah, in Venezuela, it was 4-2-2-2.
Wait, at what age?
Yeah, from 5 years old. I mean, obviously, it wasn't like we were actually in that shape. But
you guys didn't play with less numbers?
No, that's how it was done. Yeah.
Whoa.
I mean,
okay.
When it was pickup and unorganized, it was always 5v5. Right.
Unorganized. Oh, okay. Okay, that's what I wanted to ask. Okay.
Yeah, always 5v5.
Okay.
But when it was competitive,
it
was 11v11. Okay. It didn't make sense for that age, but that's just what was done. That was a tradition at that point. There were a lot of Brazilian coaches. I had one Brazilian coach particularly that influenced me a lot. It was always 4-2-2-2.
Okay.
And just kind of then seeing Real Madrid, they play that shape, but it's way different, right? So and realizing like formation is just a base. So I started writing things down and like, and just naturally, not with coaching education or anything, just naturally, hey, when we're going to be in this part of the field, it's going to be this formation. But when we're going to be in this part of the field, it's this formation, right? So from a young age, I was already kind of thinking that way. Then I was kind of introduced when I went to, in Illinois, then it was a lot of unstructured play because we had one coach that had a little bit of background in soccer, but not any coaching education. So he just kind of let us play a lot. And there was a small town, so we had kind of all the best players from the surrounding towns. It was a decent team. We competed in Illinois with, from like U10 to U16, we were always in like the top 5 teams in the state before academy, before the DA. And then when the DA came out, it was a couple of years where I wasn't involved. And then my last year of high school, I started driving down to St. Louis to play academy. And there I was introduced to a whole different type of coaching. My first time that I was like the modern high level coaching. And it just really caught my eye because my mind was already working in that sense. And I realized like how much, I had missed by constantly asking the coach questions. We would be on the plane to play, in Colorado. And I would be like sitting next to the coach asking him question. So I already had that in my mind. So when I stopped playing college, started playing PDL, had a couple of seasons there where where I had some success. And then I realized younger kids started coming in, like, Tyler Adams. Red Bulls at the time. Yeah. He came in and I realized like this kid's already ahead of me and he's...
Well, what do you mean? Oh, you mean as a player?
As a player.
Well, how old is he?
He was 14.
Okay.
Yeah, he signed young.
Okay.
And he was playing for the second team at that time, which was PDL. So for me, it was, look, I'm going to be able to, like, I'm not going to reach the top level. That's where I kind of realized, where I saw these young players coming in and I was like, competing for playing time and he was in the team all the time. I just realized, look, the biggest impact I'm going to make is if I focus on coaching and do that. So that's what I did.
Okay. And moving on towards something a little bit different in terms of, or more direct in terms of your coaching, how would you describe your philosophy of coaching in 1 to 3 sentences, if possible? But even if that's not enough, like, what is your outlook or philosophy on coaching? And this is specifically for you, not what you think it should be, but just for you.
On coaching teams or coaching individuals?
Teams.
Yeah. We want to have the ball. When we lose it, we want to win it back quickly. We want to play in their half. I think those are the 3 main things.
So you said we want to have the ball, and then you said
when we lose it, we want to win it back quickly.
Okay. And the other
and
one?
We want to play in their half.
So, okay. So that's what I was going to say. When you say we want to have the ball, because when some people say they just pass, they can go pass it back, way back, just pass it for the sake of passing, just possession for possession, but you want to have it in their half.
I mean, I think it all comes from, that total football, how the game has evolved from Rinus Michels, to Cruyff, to what Guardiola has done now. And I think that obviously there's a lot of other people with that have impacted the game to what modern football is today. But I think you have to look at those where those leaders of where they are taking the game and add to that. I think that's always, if you want to make an impact, you've got to go from where somebody's already taken the game, right? So if they've taken the game there, right, you've got to be able to do that and add to it. So I think that's where, you've got that philosophy. I think those are the main 3 things that have been established as good soccer.
Okay.
I want to have the ball. I want to play in their half. And when I lose it, I want to win it back quickly.
And by the way, of course, we're youth soccer, which is what you're saying.
I think with any age, right, you have to start from the end picture. So obviously in terms of coaching individuals and coaching younger teams, there's different things that have to be addressed before you can introduce other topics, right?
Okay.
So, but I think you start with the ball.
Okay.
And start with a ball, and you work towards what's that picture that you want to paint at the end. But if you don't know what that picture is, like you might have that 6-year-old kid. But for me, if you don't know what you want him to play like when he's 25, then you can't take him there.
Correct. Yeah.
Right? You've got to know what you want it to look like when he's 25.
Yeah.
And that soccer of when he's 25 is not the soccer that's being played right now professionally.
Ooh, right? Say that again.
So when this 6-year-old is, say, 25 in 19 years, right? Soccer is going to look different on a professional level than it looks now.
Yeah, I could see that.
So I've got to prepare that kid for that soccer in 20 years.
But how do you know what it is?
Well, that's where you have to, I think that's where you have to look and see the tendencies and where the game is going.
That's interesting because I never thought about it. I always thought about what is the best level of play now, or whatever philosophy is now, and coaching him towards that. I never thought it's going to be a different game by the time he's older.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that Guardiola said in an interview. I can't remember where, but I heard him say that one time. And I was like, wow, yeah. Like, because if we're preparing them to play this game, then, you know.
And, you know, I want to go into something a little bit more specific in what you said, because when you said play in their half, that could be interpreted in different things. Like, for example, a team could say, okay, we want to play direct, we want to force it in the other team's half, and then we want to pressure them there. You know, as opposed to like possessing towards that place.
It depends. I think it all depends on what the situation is. That might be the right answer.
Depending on the age.
No, I don't think depending on the age. I think depending on the moment of the game.
So you're saying for 10-year-olds, no, not even 10. Let's say 8-year-olds, I could understand like 13, 14, 15, but you're saying even for 8, 9, 10-year-olds that could be the case?
Let's put it like this, right? And we can bring the tactics board out and do all that, right? But let's put it like this: if you've got a let's say 5v5,
okay,
5v5, okay, so you're building with your keeper, right? And I'm talking about 5v5, so just to convey that I think this applies across all levels. I think the principles are the same across all levels.
Okay.
Right? You could be playing 2v2, it's the same.
Okay.
Right? But let's just say 5v5. Goalkeeper, 2 players, 1 on each side, right, of the goalkeeper. And then somebody near the halfway line, and then somebody in the other team's half. No offside, right, in 5v5. So you've got that diamond, and then 1 player on the other side of the field, which is typical futsal 5v5 build up from the goalkeeper. And the other team is going to press you, right? If they go man for man and they go, you know, touch tight or 1 or 2 yards away, right?
Yeah.
So they compress you here, they compress you here, okay? And they play tight to the center mid, okay? And let's say they also take the goalkeeper. So one of their outfield player steps on their goalkeeper right there. So obviously not marking him because he's going to pass the ball in. But he's that. So everybody's man for man in your half. The only player in their half is the goalkeeper. How do you get out of that?
No, that one, yeah, you would hit the forward because he's an open player.
Yeah, so, and even he's marked, right? So if he's marked and you play to his feet and it gets nicked, they're in your half going to your goal.
Now that one makes sense because everyone's marked.
So where do you go with that ball?
What do you mean? After he's...
So if the forward's marked, if your highest player up the field is marked at the halfway line, or maybe he's whether it's your highest player up the field marked at the halfway line, or you have there's a free forward in the other team's half, right? You want to play that ball into the other team's half. That longer pass might be, you know, a low percentage pass because it all depends. Of course, it all depends. But I'm saying, in general, all other things
Equal. Okay. Yeah. In that case,
That's
okay.
just
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about like, can the player pass the ball there? Or anything like that. But even if the player can't play the ball there, is the right decision to play short there?
In that case, no.
No.
In that case, no.
So if the right decision is not to play short, tell them to play long.
Yeah, that would make sense. And I told my players to do that too. I mean, that makes sense. So
if you have numbers up, then you want to try to use that numbers up and try to find a free player, right? I think that's one of the principles in terms of having the ball, bringing the ball up, building out of the back. For me, it's okay. First one is create the space. So make the space as big as possible, and then find the free man. Right?
And that one,
no, go ahead.
No, that one too. I mean, another thing too is that ultimately you want to go forward as quickly as possible. You don't want to just play it back just to play it back.
Exactly. So if there are situations where, yes, at 8 years old, get into the other team's half.
Well, I do that with my 6 and 7 year olds.
If the keeper plays the ball, they play back to him. He's under pressure. Okay, I can't pass the ball to anyone safely. Where should the ball go? In the other team's half, and let's press.
You know what I would do? Is this 6 or 7 years old?
Yeah,
I would say dribble. I would say push take your first touch forward.
It all depends. It all depends on the quality of the player.
Yeah, that too. Yeah,
and what you're working on, because you could justify, hey, dribble, because I just want you to get better at dribbling.
That's my thing. That's my thing.
Working on.
Yeah.
But for me, there's a time and place for that. And if we're in a competitive setting, you've got to teach decision making. Like if we're playing 4v4, I've got to teach you decision making with 4 players. You know, so because there's going to be, I can do 1v1 at practice.
Yeah.
And in fact, at 6 and 7 years old, if they're not proficient going 1v1 and defending 1v1, practice would probably just be 1v1. And those girls that I was coaching, 2017 girls, it's a really good group. A lot of the practice was 1v1, you know,
which is,
and kind of the tendencies here in North Texas is we want to go to play tournaments. We want to go play 7v7. And then, you know, when you start doing those things, you lose the players. You know, you start playing 7v7 with young girls, young players. They're any young players. Yeah. Right. Lack of contact with the ball. They're 6 and 7 years old. Like they need, especially because they're not playing on their own.
Oh yeah.
So if they're playing 3 hours a day on their own, they come here, they don't need to touch the ball that much. They're not so eager to touch the ball. But it's natural. I haven't touched the ball a week. I'm just running to the ball. You know, the psychology of a young player.
Yeah. And this is the thing that's tough about coaching, because there's so much nuance. But when I say, like, I agreed with their situation, like if my 6, 7 year old is marked, like, and the guy's like right next to him, I say make a run forward into space so the guy can play forward.
Definitely you want to play a pass.
Yeah.
Try to play a pass at least.
Yeah.
Spin, running behind.
Exactly.
Try to play a pass. But it's not always, like, the run is not always
It's not always on,
So, but play it there. If you have a pass here, that's risky, and a pass there, that's risky. Right? Short pass, that's risky. Long pass,
that's risky.
Take the long pass.
Now, my thing was only that you don't want to play it back, not because it's not the best decision, but just because you don't want to lose the ball. So even if the guy back has space to control it, he can do a move or he can pass. But you're like, I don't want to take that chance because he might lose the ball.
Oh no,
that's what I was talking about.
No,
so that's completely different.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to, of course. Like you want to bring the ball forward under control. That's another layer to it, right? We want to have the ball.
Yeah.
The first thing is we want to have the ball. In all situations, we want to have the ball, right? So if we can take the ball to the other team's half while having it, that's definitely better than taking the ball to the other team's half, first giving it away, and then having to get it back into the half.
Yeah.
Right? But this is where you prioritize and you have to teach decision making.
Okay. And actually, the next question I was going to ask, but you kind of answered it already, was what's the top goal that you want to achieve for your kids by the time they're done playing? And that was interesting when you said, I want to prepare them for how the game is going to change decades later, or years later.
I mean, I think that's on a soccer level. that's definitely what you want. That's how I see it. That's my vision. But I think more important, like top goal, is developing individuals that are going to be leaders in society, right?
Yeah.
People that can integrate into society in any, in any field that they decide to go into, right? Because I think the most valuable thing of youth soccer is the values that you develop by working in a team, by having to develop yourself individually, and all that collaboration, which happens in a lot of different, fields all over, our society.
Correct. And I think it'll always be like that, where the strongest teams are people who can work together. So when you have those skills of working together to accomplish a goal, 100%, something that you can master is soccer. And I know this one we could have this conversation all day, but without being as detailed as possible, what are the differences of what you focus on between each age group? Like, for example, let's say 6, 7, 10, 11, 14, 15, 19.
Yeah. So I think in general, I see it as 3 different points of development, right? One is relationship with the ball, where you want to focus only on that, because I think that there's a window for that.
And by
before 9 years old.
And by relationship, you just mean like close, like how comfortable one is with the ball?
Yeah, so all techniques.
Okay.
Right, so all techniques, all surfaces of your feet, also surfaces of your body. You want to develop all of those, not master necessarily, definitely not master, but create a proficiency within those techniques. So we're talking about, dribbling with both feet, right? Well, dribbling with the inside, dribbling with the outside, dribbling with the pinky toe.
What about
1v1 attacking?
What age
turning?
What age range is this that you're talking about?
I don't see it as age, but I think if you have to put an age range to it, between 4 and 9.
Okay.
Maybe 4 and 8. Once you turn 9, I think it turns into a different
focus.
Yeah, well, not necessarily different focus, because I think it's I see it as milestones, not by age.
Okay.
Right, like once you've developed proficiency with the ball, that can happen at
depending on the level of the players.
Yes.
For some, it'll happen at 8. For some, it'll happen at 10.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like developing the relationship with the ball until proficiency, right? That happens for some players between 4 and 7. Like for me, it happened between 4 and 7.
Okay.
Because I was in that environment.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? So then from 7 to, 12, 13, then the emphasis should be around small group tactics. Right?
And when you say small group, what are the numbers you're talking about?
Combination play. Start with 2v1, 3v2.
Okay.
2v2, 3v3.
Is 4v4 too much?
No. I mean, you can, because within 4v4, you have loads of 2v1 situations, right? And I think there's other things, like, I'm talking about, like, what you focus on.
Yes.
Right? There's other things you have to teach.
I see.
Even at, even as young as 5 years old, there's, motor mechanics, coordination. I think those are things that
big
are important
that I work on.
It's important to teach it, because it's how then you are able to run. And I think that that's something that here in this country right now, we're not focusing on it enough within soccer. Other sports have it down.
Wait. You don't think we're focusing it on enough?
Not at a young age. No.
Really?
I think we go out there and we say, hey, you've got to be good with the ball. You've got to be good with the ball.
You don't think
that's kind of the emphasis? So you, for example, say you go to, and when we do focus on it, we probably there's not enough focus on the right things. Like if I were to say to you, what's the physical periodization of your, U7 team? Like, what do you do to develop them physically?
Man, for me, I spend every day on motor skills, probably like 15 minutes, just different stuff.
So you have a certain, that's not there for every coach, you know, and you have a background in, you know, you played at D1 college level, you have a background in physical development. So you understand that.
I do it every practice.
You're able to bring it to them. But there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of coaches that are going to go out there and say, hey, it's just the ball. My job is just with the ball. And I think that's wrong, you know?
Yeah.
Because you're focused on touches. How many touches are you getting? Well, during 15 minutes, you're not getting any touches. Or you're getting less touches because you're focused on running. Well, running is part of the game. You've got to be an athlete before you're a soccer player.
And sometimes what I'll do, actually, I would say, okay, for now, most of the times when I do those motor skills, it's not even with the ball.
Yeah.
It's like, you got to react quickly. You got to be able to move. You got to be able to jump. You got to be able to dodge. You know what I mean? Yeah. So that's a lot of what
balance.
Yeah, exactly.
Change of direction.
100%. Jumping, I work on.
Deceleration.
Yeah.
Jumping off one leg. Jumping off two legs.
Yeah, I do that every training.
So yeah, and that's not my area of expertise, but it's something that interests me a lot. So I'm always, you know, trying to incorporate that in and kind of saying, okay, I think when you create a 8-week plan or you create a seasonal plan for a team at any age, there's got to be that component and it's got to fit their development for their age, right? So there's a lot of specifics.
Yeah. And what about relationship with the ball? What about after that?
So relationship with the ball, small group tactics.
Oh yeah, small group tactics. Okay.
And then I think that what a lot of us, at least I didn't realize this when I was first started coaching. At 13, they start going through puberty, right, between 13 and 15, and a lot of the times they have to relearn the technique. It's not relearn, but
I know what you mean, because their bodies are changing.
Yeah, their bodies change. So I think between 13 and 15, maybe it's 12 and 14. Just depends on the player. There's got to be a lot of focus on, again, the same things, right? But if you already got mastery of the ball and small group tactics, right, attacking and defending principles within 2 or 3 players, right, and then you start, okay, the physical things that you're working on might be a little bit different in that age. You start working a little bit more on conditioning, right? Conditioning, you're not doing conditioning at 7 years old. It's all coordination, agility, right? Conditioning, strength, power, right? Those are things that start to become more important as they get closer to 16, right? Between 12 and 16, then you start going more and more towards the conditioning and strength, right? And on a soccer level, right, it starts to become more position specific, right? So the technical aspect of it, I think at that age, it's mastering specific skill.
And again, when you say that age,
12 to 16.
12 to 16. Okay.
Yeah. So you've got those 3 blocks within youth soccer.
Okay.
Right. You've got mastery with a ball. In general, it should be 4, 5 to 8 years old.
Okay.
Then 9 to 12, right? Small group tactics, right? Mastering 1v1 attacking, mastering 1v1 defending, mastering combination play, 2v2, 3v3, right? Wall pass, overlap, and all within that, like the technique, right? So quality of the pass, weight of the pass, different types of passes, right? Before you go into combination play, you're not really working on the technique of the pass as much, right? But then it might be just more basic, right? More basic, like inside of the foot, maybe laces, right? I do think that because we can go down into more like what techniques to bring in first and go deeper, right? Like, do you go dribbling first? You go passing first? You go shooting? When does heading come in?
Yeah.
When does slide tackling come in? When do volleys come in? You can layer all that in, right? But you've got to introduce all of that, and then between 9 and 12, it's the tactics around it, right? How to implement those things. And now there's more detail because it's when. That's when the decisions start to come more between 9 and 12. When should I make this outside of the foot pass? When should I play a soft pass rather than a hard pass? Right?
Yeah.
What foot should I play it to when he's under pressure? What foot should I play it to when he's not under pressure?
Yeah.
Right? Those details in the decision making,
Yeah.
9 and 12.
Okay.
And then again, 12 to 14, 12 to 16 is then more the emphasis on the physical, but all those other things, you have to keep doing those things.
Because they're changing.
Yes,
Their bodies
they're
are changing.
changing. So you have to refine. But yeah, that's where. And then the last component of it is right there, and this is something Arsene Wenger talks a lot about, between that 16 and say 20 is the psychological component. And that's where you kind of find out at the end, who are the players? Do they have because you can already see psychological characteristics, right? But within their environment at 16, are they able to make the right decisions off the field to keep themselves
in that area 6? Yeah.
Centered on soccer?
I see. Yeah.
We lose a lot of players like that, right? Like you've got kids that, and I can tell you, for example, I took this Solar U15 MLS Next team beginning of, summer of 2021. And, summer of 2022. And took them for a year. At the beginning of that, I was looking and thinking, look, this kid might be really talented. Kind of, you always create like a depth chart, rank them in terms of prospects, just kind of seeing who are the ones that are standing out. Now we're nearing the end of the U16 season. The same player, like the talent level doesn't really change, but you notice like a kid that maybe wasn't near the top of the talent list, psychologically he's way more dedicated. Just in 2 years, like now he's near the top of the list. The kid that was super talented, right? He had all that coaching from a young age, right? Motor mechanics, individual with a ball, individual tactics, started getting bigger tactics in the game, refined the technique, top player. U14 starts hanging out with a wrong crowd at school, has an older girlfriend, distracted, is getting home late. Maybe the parents are working late, so they don't, or maybe the parents just don't care that much. There's a lot of different components. They get to that age, are they able to focus on what they need to focus on the field, and then the nutrition and start introducing the nutrition from a very young age. But at that age is when you can start seeing the big results of it on the field. Right. If you introduce it at that age, it's too late, because you have to introduce it before it matters, right? Because you end up getting players that are 16, 17 years old, rocking up to a pro trial, having eaten McDonald's breakfast. Right? It's too late at that point. And then you might be in good condition, but there's another level, and now you didn't perform that day, and that was the only chance you had.
Let me tell you, I already think about, obviously, like at that point it's different because players at that point get to make their own decisions. But one of the things that I think about too, and I think about this as young as 6 and 7 years old, is when things get tough, how does a player handle it? When things aren't going his way, how does it handle it? And can I influence that as a coach?
Oh, I think you can. Yes.
Because I think about that a lot.
You have to go deeper. I think you have to go deeper, but I think that is a person. There's different personalities. There's personalities that are kids that, because of their personality and their upbringing, just have it. Like they don't, and those are the ones that are, special. But there's also other ones that have other special characteristics, and you have to help them get around to that. And it can be very difficult, because there's a lot of psychological things that happen that they might not even be aware of, like traumas from their past, things that are not coming out. But I think you can definitely influence that. I think it's identifying what type of personality is it, and then based on that personality, what is it that's going to work for them, right? So if you have a kid that's very outspoken, very extrovert.
Yeah.
There's obviously more layers to personalities, but let's just say extrovert versus introvert, right? When you have an extrovert that is having a hard time with moving on, right? Moving on from a mistake, right? When things go wrong, right? It might be you might give them a tool of saying, hey, when something goes wrong, say to your teammates, take accountability, right? And that's going to help ground you, right?
Wait, so you're saying someone who's hard on themselves,
not hard on themselves, extrovert in terms of, or well, you're saying hard on yourself because of a mistake.
Is that, yeah, because you said like someone who takes a mistake a certain way, but then you said
a mistake or adversity. Or you said adversity.
Yeah, adversity.
Yeah, adversity.
So then they hold themselves accountable.
Well, I think the adversity, or maybe I'm
adversity. You don't know adversity.
Yeah,
is what
maybe
I mean.
I'm going
adversity.
There's loads of different types of adversity.
When things don't go your way,
whether it's the team or whether it's right. But a lot of the times it's the individual mistakes that they kind of have a hard time getting over.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. It might be like the team concedes a goal and then, you think you didn't have anything to do with it. You're a forward and then you're yelling at someone else. There's different there's a lot of times where that extrovert passes the blame because they just want to say something.
Oh, yes.
They want to say something. Yes. But the kids that are more introverted kind of go within themselves and don't say anything. Yeah. Right. So there's the self-talk component, and this is something that I'm working now in terms of mentoring kids, doing it through the online coaching, and the majority of the kids that I'm working with individual mentoring are online. There's a few in person as well, and just developing the self-talk.
Yeah, that's huge.
Right? The self-talk. So how do we do that? Right. For me, it's go and look at the video, look at where you're kind of getting down on yourselves and not getting on with the game. And then just develop little things of like, what could I have said to myself there that maybe gets me to switch on? And then just play the video back and just
self-talk is so huge because that can destroy your whole game. Like, let's say a forward misses a chance he should have scored. And when they lose confidence. And that's why, because I know at the professional level, with the competition and the expectations, self-talk is huge.
Yeah, but even at a young age, I think the 6 and 7... Right, and we keep going back to that age because that's the team that I saw that you coached.
Yeah,
and a bunch of talented players. They've got their self-talk is going to come from their parents, right? What they hear at home, in different situations,
or in the car after a game.
If you see a player that's very negative, it's probably something that's happening at home.
100%.
So then it's kind of helping educate their parents.
100%.
Right, just having a conversation. It's not always so easy when you have a conversation with a parent to say, hey, you need to focus on being more positive. But I think sometimes we can layer it like, hey, I noticed that, he's being hard on himself. Remind him that, when something bad happens, this is what you can say to yourself, kind of helping them.
That's so true.
You're not going to get an hour with a younger kid.
Yeah.
Right? But they get time with their parents. So if we can get their parents saying the right things to them. And it's a lot of work, isn't it?
That's so true that you said that, and I hate to single out parents, but yeah, that's very true.
Well, it's not singling them out, right? It's just the parents are the ones that have the biggest impact in terms of the time, the values of the a lot of the time. Sometimes it's the grandparents. Sometimes it's daycare. Okay. And not everybody's fortunate to spend a lot of time with their kids.
Yeah.
Right? So. Yeah.
Awesome. And these next questions are geared towards American youth soccer as a whole. But if you could change one thing about the American culture for youth soccer to improve the level of its players or coaches, what would it be? Just one thing.
Change one thing.
Yeah, whether it's the societal culture or whether it's just youth soccer in general. Like for you, I can give examples too. So one example would be, I like the one in Venezuela where they have a lot of unstructured play. Another one could be more coaches getting education.
We've talked about that. I think the unstructured play, you need. I think if we were just to change one thing,
just one thing.
I think it would be placing hard surface courts
Mm-hmm.
near schools and near big facilities to facilitate that unstructured play.
Yeah.
I think that would be it. And I
And
think from there, I think that would be the first thing. That's the most important thing.
and when you like, for example, and I'm just imagining, like, let's say you had the opportunity to do it. Are you saying that near these schools you would set up a place strictly for soccer with these hard courts, or?
I mean, you see it in a lot of different countries, and like in the Netherlands, they came up with the Cruyff courts, right? So the Cruyff courts, it's out through a program of, I don't know if it's Cruyff or his family, but they basically donate money to communities, and they put these courts that are all boarded, right? So the ball doesn't go anywhere, gated, so the kids are safe, and then it's got a goal built in, right? So then, and it's also got a basketball hoop a lot of times above the goal, right? Yeah. But I think that the placement of this, like whether it's, you know, in the middle of a neighborhood or at a school, right, in the playground, or in a soccer facility where a lot of times you've got siblings like hanging around the facility, like, can you have that there, right? Because I think you see siblings hanging around, and like you've got a 3 or 4 year old shooting at this like 11v11 goal, right? And it's okay, but like you're not learning the nuances of the game.
Correct.
Right. It's way better if you can get those kids like in a small court, just like small situations and around the ball a lot.
And you know what I like about what you said is, one, when it's near a school, easy access for the player, easy access for the family, and I think that really helps, because right now we're relying on kids with the great separation of homes to just come out of their houses, go onto the street and play. Like, practically, that's not practical.
No, it doesn't work in our society.
Like,
even I would say even growing up, in Illinois, I grew up in a subdivision, like very residential. We had a little park. A lot of people would meet there. There it was all like basketball, baseball, American football, but kids would meet at a park, right? That happens here as well. There's other communities where maybe it's more spread out. It doesn't happen, but we just need those, like, in the communities that need them. Do we need to put it?
What do you mean when you say in the communities that need them?
Like, in the communities where there is a passion for the sport, like you don't need to put a
like the pot, going back to the pockets. Is what you're saying.
Like, do we need to put a court, you know, in a baseball centric community?
I see what you're saying.
Don't waste your money there.
Yeah.
Put it in the areas where
I see
you've got kids that are going to use it.
Yeah, man, I think that's great. And my next question, I was going to follow up on this, but I think this is easy. Is do you think this is possible or impossible? Why or why not? Or what makes it
change?
This change, yeah.
Yeah, definitely possible. I think it takes a little bit of vision. I think in terms of facilities, we've got, you know, the world-class facilities to host a World Cup, but we don't have the functional facilities to build players, just the functionality.
Man, and by that, when you say facilities, the playing areas, like structured games, but we don't have, like, for recreational use.
Yeah, we don't have areas for kids to just go and play pickup.
Yeah,
we don't have areas. I mean, so like, and what I did when I started coaching in Hoboken, New Jersey, I started coaching with the Red Bulls training programs. So the kids would train twice a week, right? And they're going 3 times a week, but they start at U8 twice a week. I would also go to a basketball court, local basketball court at an elementary school. I would take 2 pub goals. And I would tell them, hey, you're welcome to come. It's not mandatory, but you're welcome to come. Wear flat shoes, right? Whether it's futsal or just sneakers, and we're just gonna play pickup. And I would just sit back and just let them play. And at the beginning, I would kind of guide them a little bit. Hey, here, pick teams. This is how you pick teams. Years old, let them, right? You need that. Like, I look back and, like, I can't do that now. Like, if I was coaching a team, because now I'm, you know, I got responsibilities to my family and my kids where I can't donate my time like that. But at that point, I was able to do that. And I think that this falls on the clubs we've got to find ways to create that, unstructured play, like supervised, because in this day and age, you need it to be
Yeah,
supervised,
yeah, of course. Yeah.
but not, structured.
Yeah.
Not like I'm telling you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
Just more mentors.
Yeah.
Like you can have kids that are, at the club playing on older teams. Like, hey, whether it's a student job or whether it's a volunteer hours or whether it's, hours to help with your scholarship. Hey, you're gonna be a player mentor here for pickup soccer.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do that. I just, haven't really had the opportunity to do that yet.
Yeah.
It takes the facilities, it takes the willingness from the clubs, so yeah.
Man, and that pretty much wraps up this show. But Santiago, man, I really want to thank you so much for joining this. And from the first time I spoke with you, I was like, man, this is what I'm talking about. Like, we need more coaches, and it's really the intent. It doesn't mean that I have to agree with everything that a coach says, but when I know that their intent is good and it's for the betterment of the game and not for the betterment of themselves or for their careers or to make more money, you know what I mean? So I really want to thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I feel like we should do one where I interview you.
Man, yeah, 100%, 100%. And that's all. That's it. That's all we have on EvoToca podcast. Stay tuned for the next episode. Oh man, that was